All set then?
I am ready.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education for the District of North Fond du Lac tonight. I'd like to start out tonight's meeting with a roll call vote, please.
Chisholm.
I'm here.
Hack.
Here.
Goldowski here. Yeager.
Here.
Geckerman.
Here.
The board is in 100% attendance. Thank you. So therefore we have quorum. Report on public notice, please, Mr. Sadov.
Yes, thank you, President Chisholm. Public notices were mailed to the Fond du Lac Reporter, radio station KFIZ 107.1 The Bull, WFDL Radio, and agendas were also posted in the district as the BP on Prospect in Municipal Building on February 25th, 2022.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the January regular board meeting minutes were distributed in the members packet. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes as they were published?
I had one, but Aaron, did you say that it was
Yes.
going to be changed?
Yep, that it was that, just to add that with Bess, that it's with regrets on her retirement.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? So with that correction, then the minutes will stand approved as published. Treasurer's report, please.
Yes, absolutely. So our cash balance on hand as of January 24th, 2022 was $1,091,660.07. We had receipts from 1/25/2022 to 2/28/2022 of $835,011.43. Transfers from the investment account of $500,000 with a total receipts of $2,426,671.50. During that same period of 1/24/2022 to 2/28/2022, our expenditures were $3,526,449.68, which is also the total expenditures. Cash balance on hand as of February 28th, 2022 was a deficit of $1,099,778.18. Bills are recommended for payment as shown on the attached list dated February 28th, 2022, in the amount of $3,222,347.66. The bills to be approved on February 28th board meeting today are pre-approved checks of $1,154,920.14 and board meeting checks of $2,067,427.52. For the total bills to be approved of $3,222,347.66.
All right, thank you, Mr. Geckerman. Financial information was also distributed to all of the members in the board packet. Does anyone have any questions about the financial information that was distributed?
And I should just mention that the treasurer's report, it looks pretty ugly at that deficit of $1 million, but we had a deposit in transit. Our tax payments, our February tax settlement payments came in, but they did not make the cutoff for that report. So we're absolutely fine. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. And this gets at the 4 equal payment legislation that Ted talked about earlier. And so what we get and what we pay is not always in sync. So what's the board's pleasure on the $3,222,347.66?
I'll make a motion to approve the list of bills.
All right, I have a motion to approve the bills as presented. Do I hear a second?
I'll second. Go ahead, Terry.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Hack.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes.
Goldowski, yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Clerk's report.
As you see on the screen, we have some donations, $500 to Incubator EDU from Hubert E. Logan Krieger, Judith Berger, $3,000 to the Treffert Way, and Lloyd Wieland, $1,300 to the Treffert Way. Thank you for those donations.
Excellent. Any correspondence?
No
Not
correspondence.
this month. All right. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Student Council report. Looking in the Hollywood squares there, I don't see.
Bianca, you there?
I'm here, yes, I'm here.
All right.
Okay, good.
Okay, so it's been kind of quiet within the clubs the past like month. It's just kind of been around, but we did for student council have our pink out game, and we ended up raising a total of $467, which we donated to breast cancer. And then for our 74 second dash, which we went up to the stands and like collected cash from the audience, we raised $320 from that, which went into the total of $400. And then we also have officially canceled our winter ball and family night for student council. Those are both canceled completely. And then we just introduced our new members to Tea Club, the incoming members this year. And then for NHS, we're just talking about our banquet so far, but that's about all we have going on.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you so much for the Student Council report. It's always nice to hear from our Student Council representative what's going on. Next on the agenda is item I, citizens input. This is an opportunity for those of you who are in the audience that wish to address the board. If you are a resident of the district, you may do so at this time. Please start out. If you're going to address the board, just let us know who you are and what your address is.
All right, my name is Tara McCarthy. I do not feel like publicly sharing my address right now. It was brought to my attention 2 weeks ago by my 4th grader, a lesson he was being taught in school. Now, my 4th grader, the doctors think he's on the spectrum, so when he tells me something feels different, I always ask him, please explain. What do you see? What makes you think this isn't correct, or what makes you feel the way you feel? So he told me, Mom, we had a book read to us today. Great, please tell me about your book. I'm not going to go into detail with the book. As he's explaining it to me, I did not like what I had heard. I instantly reached out to his teacher and I said, hey, is this what's going on? Is this what is he hearing it correctly? You know, is this being perceived properly? He is an amazing teacher. The staff has been amazing. For my request, I pulled my child from this lesson. In this lesson, and it's supposed to be a writing lesson, it is about 2 children of different colors, different races. One child gets something that the other child does not. So my question is, this is supposed to be a writing lesson. What was the lesson that was being taught by having this book be read? By them having to decipher and pick apart this short book. He had to answer questions like, when I first read this story, I thought it was about blank. But now that I think about it more deeply, I realize it's really about blank, which sounds great. These are amazing questions, but not for this book. This book is teaching our children to use an identity-based approach. It is not teaching our children to use a principle-based approach, which means it is teaching our children to judge somebody based on the color of their skin and not by the character or who they are. Our children need to not think that that's okay. My child can come home and tell you what a child's wearing down to his socks, but he will not tell you what color skin he has, and that is what I want. My children do not see color, they see you for as you are. So as I'm fighting with many other parents to make sure that our children are learning this way, it's lessons like these that are completely contradicting what we're teaching at home. So I ask that this lesson be brought up by you guys. If you're able to, can it be put up and you guys discuss it? Look into it. For this type of a lesson, can't the children pick a book? Can't they answer these questions based on a book that they feel or is in this category? My child picked American Girl book. It was exactly the same genre that was needed to do this exact so-called lesson. But the school picked a book on division. I'm asking that this lesson be brought up and looked into and discussed. Because if it continues, I will gladly pull my children from these types of lessons and have them do a modified lesson, because basically that's what he's doing. He's doing this lesson in a different book. So if that's possible, then why can't it be done in the school setting? You know, we want these children to be productive citizens, to look at people for who they are, not judge them by something they can't control.
All right. Any other comments? Rick?
Yeah, Rick Nappy, 1727 Park Ridge Lane, North Fond du Lac. I bought that book. I read the book. A completely different interpretation of what was just described. But regardless of that, I don't think that's this board's deserve. I would urge the board not to be involved in disputes like that. This is, as we just went through this board meeting, that's what I would consider below the line. These are our teachers picking out books that they feel are appropriate to their lesson. And I believe that as a board, we should rely on our teachers' expertise to do that. Thanks.
All right. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Rob Murphy, Van Dyne, Wisconsin. Just like to reiterate Tara's request. It is the board's responsibility, and it is the parents' right to say what their children are exposed to and what they're not exposed to. So this situation reveals in no uncertain terms that yes, the school is teaching critical race theory. It's wrong, parents are against it. It's harming our children, it's harming our future. And yes, you do need to address it, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rob. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else, I'll declare the citizens portion of the meeting closed at 7:14 p.m. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Mr. Sadoff?
Thank you, Mr. Chisholm. Well, thanks again, and I want to thank the board members and also the four other candidates that came and were at the earlier session at 5 o'clock with Ted Knightsky about boardsmanship. So thank you very much for dedicating that time, and thank you for coming. Tonight we don't have a lot of different information, but we do have some that I'm really excited to share. And first off, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over, and then Maria, if you would like to introduce Huberty and what they're going to be showing. And I passed out the book and the 2 letters to the board, but if you'd like to introduce Lauren and Logan, and then we'll let you guys take it over.
Thank you. Yes, I am happy to introduce Logan and Lauren from Huberty. They did our annual audits in July. And I would say that it went very smoothly. There are always little glitches when you're transitioning from one company to another, but they did a great job in gathering the information and digging back on information and correcting some things that maybe weren't done the way we would have liked them done. So they did a great job. And they have the audited financial statements posted or shared on the screen, and then you have the paper copies. So Lauren and Logan will go through those, and then feel free to ask them any questions along the way. Thank you, Lauren and Logan.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. We definitely wanted to say thank you as well. Working with the team there has been a great transition, both from the auditor side and happy to hear them from the client side as well. So definitely going to share the audit results with you here today. And please, as Maria said, if you have any questions as we go through, please don't hesitate. I can't see everyone while I'm sharing, so please just give me a shout out and let me know that you have a question. So we're going to start on page 4 of the financial statements here. This is the end product of the audit. So our responsibility as the auditor is to issue an opinion on the financial statements, and your responsibility as management and governance is to prepare and review the financial statements, and our responsibility is then to issue an opinion on those financials. So if we scroll down here to the bottom, the last paragraph on the audit report page is our opinion, and we did issue an unmodified opinion. So that is a clean opinion, but that's what everyone wants. And so we did not find anything that would materially misstate the financial statements at all. So we were able to issue that unmodified opinion. So then here now we're gonna move on to page 8. These first 2 statements here, this is the statement of net position. These first 2 statements are required under the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So these numbers that you're seeing are not going to tie to the Skyward report that you receive, because this information also includes your long-term assets and your long-term liabilities that you're not going to see in that Skyward reporting. But all very similar to what you would have seen in prior years. We are breaking out the net position, so that's the equity that's built up in the school district over time. We are seeing those broken out between the different restrictions for your different funds, and then also then just the remaining is unrestricted. And then here in our statement of activities, again, this is the second statement that includes that long-term information. So these numbers are not going to tie to Skyward here. But what we're doing here is we're showing all of the expenses and then any associated revenue that's directly associated with an expense. So I always like to use food service as the example here, because we're showing that the district had $800,000 worth of expenses for food service. They received $79,000 of charges for services. And then they also received $660,000 of grants and free federal aid, things like that came through. So that made up for almost all of the expenses. There was just a little bit less that the district would have had to cover. And then of course your general revenues are down here at the bottom that aren't associated with a specific expense. Then we have here our balance sheet. So here you're going to see at the top, this is going to tie to your assets and liabilities that you would see in Skyward. We're breaking out some funds, the major funds, and then we'll show on a back schedule the individual funds that are considered non-major. And then here at the bottom, what we're doing is we're reconciling those front 2 statements back to this one here. So here we're just showing all of the assets and liabilities. And then here's where we're showing revenues and expenses. Again, so this would tie to Skyward. And again, we're breaking out those major funds. So this is showing all of those revenues and expenses. And as we can see here, our general fund, we did have a positive net income, if you will, of $93,000. And even just looking, there were no transfers needed between the general fund and the other funds. We will see a transfer between the general fund and special education fund, and we'll see that on a separate page. And then this statement is just reconciling that all together. So it's all of the long-term effects between the 2 sets of statements. And then here you're going to see all zeros here for our fiduciary funds because we closed Fund 73. So we're going to see that activity is 0. We did have some, revenues and expenses here that we had to record for this year because we closed it at the end of the year. But next year we won't have any of this activity.
And Lauren, can you just explain what Fund 73 is?
Oh yes, sorry, absolutely. It's the Employee Benefit Trust Fund. So where we had set aside money for the OPEB benefit, now we're no longer going to have the trust set up. We're just going to pay for those benefits out of the general fund.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, the next few footnotes here. These are just the accounting policies of the district. There's nothing new to report on here, so I'm going to skip over here just in the essence of time here today. I'm going to get down to some of the meat here. Then the next set of footnotes here fully describes those numbers on the front statement, so provides more information on the front statement. So again, here, all of these are ones that you would have seen from year to year. Nothing new was required here for this year. So all of these you're going to have seen in the past. But I did want to show you the debt footnote. I always like to share this so that the board can see as of the end of the year where the debt position was for the district. And so we can see that we did have, you know, a few of those new loans and some capital leases that came into play this year. And then can see, if we scroll down here, what your future payment schedule looks like. So the loans go out until 2038. So sometimes it's just nice to see that at a quick glance, what our debt position looks like. And then pension, that comes directly from WRS. They actually have an actuarial study done that tells you how much you owe or what the liability is for the district as of June. And that's based on lots of different factors, you know, how many people we think are going to retire and their age to retirement, things like that, all come into play. So they tell us that amount based on the study. And that also comes into play as well with your having it at the other post-employment benefit study. And our actuary performs that as well to also tell us what the liability is for that as well. So as we can see here, I'll show you in this table here, our liability was 1.5 million as of the end of June. And again, here you're going to see in this middle column here for the fiduciary net position, which that means the trust, that there is no money sitting in the trust that would offset that liability. So everything that now would be paid out for those benefits would just come from the general fund. Okay, and then I'm going to jump now to some of the supplementary information. This is just more information on the not only the OPEB, but also the life insurance benefit as well. That also comes from the actuary through WRS. Okay, so then this is our required supplementary information. So here we have some budget to actual information, and this is breaking out the general fund as well as the special education fund. So as we can see, our total expenditures for the general fund, we were slightly over budget there. But on the special education side, we were under budgeted by $200,000. And actually the transfer that was needed from the general fund to the special education fund, we had budgeted thinking we would need to transfer 3.4 million, and we only had to transfer 3 million. So we did have some savings there as well. And then here we have the breakdown, same for budget versus actual for our debt service fund as well. Everything lined up there. And then the capital projects fund. So here we can see we were under budget with our total expenditures there. Then we do have some more information. Again, that's based on the actuarial study. So this information all comes from that. And then we have, again, some more information related to the OPEB. So these are all just required schedules that come from that actuary. So then here this tells us if we had any changes, if the actuary had any changes in how they were making that determination. And so here we didn't have any changes except for a little bit of assumptions with our discount rate that they used. And then here we're just noting that excess of expenditures for the general fund that we had talked about earlier. And then here now we're going to have the breakdown of our non-major funds. So here we're going to see those assets and liabilities for all of the non-major funds here. And all of that money, as you're going to see, we're showing all of that is being restricted because it's restricted for that purpose. So the food service money is going to stay in the food service, the community service money is going to stay in the community service fund. So that's what we're presenting there. And then here now we also have the revenues and expenses associated with this as well. So again, these numbers would tie to the Skyward balances. So they should be something similar to what you would have seen, from Maria and that finance team. And then here we have a single audit. And so what the single audit means is that the district received more than $750,000 of federal revenue. So there is a schedule coming up here that I'll show you that shows all of the federal money that the district received. And so these are required letters that are based on us performing a single audit. And so this letter is saying that we have reviewed the internal control of the district and we've evaluated to see if there would be any deficiencies in internal control. And so we do have one deficiency. It's the same deficiency that you've had in prior years, which is preparation of financial statements. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on that in the next coming pages. This letter also says if we found any non-compliance with respect to the internal control, and we did not find any non-compliance. The second letter here then goes over the compliance that we have for the federal major programs that we're testing. So we have to test federal programs for the single audit, but then we also have to test state major programs as well. So this is again talking about if we had any non-compliance or if we had any internal control deficiencies, and we did not find either of those. So this is the schedule. I know this is really tiny here, but this is the schedule that shows that the district received $2 million. We use this disbursements column here to make the determination of if you're over the threshold or not. So the $2,089,000, that shows us that you did need to have that single audit requirement, and we'll most likely need to continue that into the future. I know previously that has been the case as well. Sometimes there can be some changes with funding with the ESSER money and things like that, and the free lunches played into it. But that's the number that you're looking for to see if that requirement is there. And then this also shows the state money that the district received as well as the charter school money at the end. So then here I will talk now. So this is just a summary of how the audit went. Again, so we're saying that we had an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, and the only deficiency we found was the preparation of financial statements. No non-compliance was noted. This is telling us which major programs we tested. So we tested the ESSER 1 and 2, as well as the school-based services. And then from the state award side, we tested special education and general equalization aid. And then here we're going into a little bit more detail about the preparation of financial statements. So what this is saying is that the district has hired us as your auditors to prepare the financial statements, but we cannot be considered part of the internal control of the district. So what we ask is that you review the financial statements in detail and ask us any questions if you have a question about something. And then we also give the district what we call a disclosure checklist. So it is literally a checklist to kind of check the box to say, have we included everything? Have we informed our auditor of everything, to make sure that then the financial statements are complete and accurate. And again, that was the same, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna back up to the deficiency, the financial statements. Would you say that most districts have that deficiency?
Absolutely, this is very common. Most districts don't have someone, either in management or on the board that has the knowledge of, all the new accounting pronouncements coming out and things like that. So this is very common, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It definitely has been one that the district has seen previously as well. So you'll see here that this talks about the status of the prior year findings. It's the same finding that we have, so nothing new there. Is there any questions on the financial statements before I move over to the letters?
And then just so everybody knows, take some time to digest this, and then as we come back, if you have any other questions or needs, you can reach out directly to Maria, or we can have more information later. So just know that this isn't, if you have questions or have any other needs, don't feel, that this is the end of it. If you have, dig in there, have some fun with that, and know that we're here to answer questions.
Absolutely, anytime we're available for questions. So this is one of the letters that we have here. This is a required letter that requires us to talk to the board and governance and tell you how the audit went. And so here you can see that if we had any new accounting policies that we had adopted, we would tell you about those. We're letting you know that there's some estimates included in the financial statements, those actuarial studies being performed for the pension benefits and the OPEB, things like that. That is all based on an estimate from those actuarial studies. And then, of course, we do have an estimate of depreciation expense for the capital assets. Determining the useful life is an estimate, depending on how long we think we'll use that asset for. So those couple things we just needed to make sure that we tell you about, that those are included in there. And then also in this first paragraph here on the second page, we also are required to tell you of any material adjustments that we had to make in the financial statements. And so we did have to record the capital lease proceeds, and we did also work with Maria to help record that employee benefit trust fund activity to then be able to close everything out for that fund as well. So we definitely just worked hand in hand with Maria to just make those adjustments. But otherwise, everything else went very well. We didn't have any, disagreements with management, any issues, nothing like that. And so that's what this letter is telling us here. And then our last letter here, this we just like to call our management letter, because if there's anything informative that we want to let you know about, we want to be sure to do that via this letter here. So what we're doing here is we are informing you that we didn't have any new pronouncements this year to implement. We do next year have the lease standard that we're going to have to talk through. And so we've started these discussions with management, but definitely want to continue these discussions because this will be effective here for the 21-22 school year. And what we're looking at there is a new definition of leases that is a little bit more broader than what it had before. And then we need to make a determination of does this qualify to then be put on where it would be shown as a right of use asset, as well as then you have an obligation to pay this lease agreement. So basically what's happening is a lot of times we could just take those lease payments and they would just be expensed. Well, now they're wanting us to show a lot of these lease agreements, if not all of them, will end up on what we call the balance sheet, where you'll see that right of use asset and then you'll see the liability for that obligation. And it's not just as easy as, well, let's look up what lease agreements we all have, because sometimes that word lease isn't necessarily in there. It's a contract or a service agreement. And sometimes it can be something that's sort of hidden because it's more of a maintenance contract, but there's maybe an underlying asset within there. I use the example, if you have a cleaning service who comes in, but they leave the floor scrubber, and the floor scrubber is only used by the North Fond du Lac schools. Well, yes, there's a lease agreement for the service contract, but there is an embedded lease for that floor scrubber that only you have access to, and so you do have that right to use asset. So we're going to keep working with Maria on this in the finance team, but we just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that there will be a new standard that comes that we'll have to implement for next year. Does anyone have any questions?
So if you've started to look into this lease issue, I mean, it sounds to me like it's already money that we are spending. It's just a reporting structure change.
Absolutely. It's just how it will look on our audited financial statements. Yes. Everything else will stay the same because it still was always a lease to you, to the district, in the sense that you were getting an asset up front and then paying over time to use that asset.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anybody else drowning? Need a life jacket?
Oh, I know it's a lot to take in. Absolutely.
If you could summarize, Lauren, how are we looking compared to other districts? How would you say, what would you describe our financial position? How would you describe that?
Absolutely. I would describe it as healthy. You've been able to, over the years, put money into your fund balance, and so that's really good to be able to see that we're, saving for the future. You've done some capital improvement projects as well, so that's always good to see that we're keeping up on that maintenance. We wouldn't want to defer maintenance into the future, so you're able to actually keep up with that. And of course, the technology as well, keeping up with technology costs and things like that. You have done a very good job of being able to do that. Staying within your budgets, all of those are good things to see from a financial side of things.
So are we gonna get out of this year without having to short-term borrow?
Well, that's cash flow related, so I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I will say, it can really fluctuate between our schools. We have some schools that just have access to it, and they sometimes don't need to use that short-term borrowing. And then we have other times where they do end up need to use it. So that really does depend district by district.
The answer's no.
And usually October, November are the months that we really have to watch it, and we did get through. So, we'll see what the rest of the year brings, but hopefully not. We do have that safety net there if we need it, but, so far so good.
Questions from anyone? Well, in our spare time, we'll digest this, and we know where to find you if we have any questions.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for letting us join tonight.
All right.
Thank you both.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Yeah, so look into that. It's the same thing that we've had other years, same amount of information. One of those things, look into it more. As Maria had said, we're doing a really, really good job. And once again, a clean audit. Maria, do you have any other things that you want to add?
No, just a shout out to the business office team that had to put information together and work with them. They're awesome. So a shout out to them. We couldn't do it without them.
All right, well, thank you. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll move on to the next part. We'll go to school and department reports. And what we'll do is this time we'll start at, we'll start at elementary. So Carrie, Joe, and Lauren.
Hello, thank you. Before we do start with our building report, I do feel compelled to address the citizens' comments just for people in the audience, just to know that the citizens' input consisted of some mischaracterization of some texts that were assigned to our students. And I would just encourage anyone who has questions about our curriculum or our materials to reach out directly. In this particular case, that text was provided to the family in advance, and we are willing to do that with anyone. So again, I just want to make sure that anyone who's listening to our board meeting knows that we are very transparent with our curriculum and happy to provide that information upon request.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for our board report this month, we are hosting 4 educators. They're future educators, so they're they're college students who are working on their degree in education. They are not student teaching as far as leading lessons, but they are doing some observations. So we have Alex Alonso and Barbara Krull with Mr. Testrodi, and we have Nathan Block and Jeray Walters with Miss Braun. And then I also wanted to let you know that we have 31 4th and 5th grade girls that are signed up for Girls on the Run. And they'll be representing FLC in the Fond du Lac County area Girls on the Run. And we have, in order to have groups that size, we have to have a certain number of coaches. So I'm really excited that we were able to increase our coaches and want to recognize them. It's Penny Surway, Amber Coates, Carrie Nitz, Becky Carmona, Molly Gretz, Erin Andrews, and Nicole Garcia. So they will be working with the girls. They do some personal development with the girls in addition to training them for a run that happens. They do a race in May. Also wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Yankee. He leads our annual American Heart Association Kids Challenge, and our students raised $7,146.21 this year. So that is amazing, and we're really happy to be able to contribute that donation. And then we've been partnering again with Bridging Brighter Smiles. They've been coming in every month, and they continue to add dates just to meet the needs of our students. And we've also seen an increase in the number of mental health providers that have been providing on-site counseling for our students. So we're excited that we're able to meet that need as well. I had some adult learning celebrations. Tammy Rademan is our math specialist. She completed ABMR teacher training course 1 and course 2. So that is through the United States Math Recovery Council. I gave you a little bit of background of what it's for, and we're hoping that we're able to roll out that training to our classroom teachers. We were planning to do that a few years ago, and it got derailed, so we're hoping to be back on track and we'll be able to do that as early as next year. Then I have Mrs. Logeman with her mid-year reading results. So she sees 3 students per grade level. Kindergarten doesn't get started right away at the beginning of the year because we're still getting to know the kids. So she typically starts with our kindergartners at mid-year, well, a little before mid-year, but the data I'm sharing with you is our 1st through 5th grade kiddos. And as I noted, we have 11 students that are receiving intervention, intensive intervention with Mrs. Logeman that are exceeding their growth goals for the year. We have 2 that are meeting and 2 that are not yet meeting that mid-year target. But what's really encouraging is that the growth among the students ranges anywhere from 4 months to 19 months of growth within 1 semester. And the median growth for this group of kids is 8.7 months. So within, again, a half of a school year, they're growing beyond the rate of a typical student, which is what we would want to see during an intervention. And then looking at other data points for the same group of students, our mid-year STAR data for these kids is showing a student growth percentile, or SGP, ranging from 6 points to 95. But the median SGP is 57. And our KPI for 1 year's growth using STAR SGP is defined as ranging between 35 and 60. So again, we're seeing that median is 57. That's on the high end of that, and definitely showing that we're seeing that transfer of skill between the intervention, the classroom, and our Lexia lessons in our STAR. So I wanted to give a congratulations to Mrs. Logeman and to those kids that she's working with. And then lastly, I had data for our school learning objective, just kind of rolling that again back up to our teachers create SLOs or student learning objectives as part of their educator effectiveness. We roll that up into our school improvement plan, and then that aligns with the district goals as well. So again, where we started the year using Lexia as the measure for consistency for this report, we had 17% of our students that were working at or above grade level in Lexia Core 5 reading. And at the time that I wrote the board report, we had 56% of our students working at or above grade level for Lexia skills. And then our school target is 79% by the end of the year. And I have the different tables to show you where the grade levels are performing. And again, where we had left this report, I think it was a week ago, and we are seeing still everyday movement. So I can look at that at moment's notice and pull up the number of kids. So even though it was 56% when I wrote the board report, we are now up to 57%. So again, it's incremental growth, but it's just in a short amount of time. So just wanted to share and highlight that and be able to answer any questions if you had any about our school-wide data.
I had one question, so thank you for sharing first. That 17% to 79% end of year, what are some of the behaviors that you're seeing that's helping that growth? Because that's a huge accomplishment, so.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, the school data is really complicated. So Lexia is a reading skills program. It's computer-based. But our teachers are doing obviously a lot of other work. It's not that the computer is doing the work, the kids are doing the work, and our teachers are supplementing with, again, that universal curriculum, Lucy Calkins reading and writing, Lucy Calkins phonics for kindergarten through 2nd grade, and then word study with our 3rd through 5th graders. So our teachers are really engaging the students. This is just an opportunity where we're using, Lexia uses the science of reading approach to deliver specific skills and to diagnose where kids are struggling. So we can drill really deep into a student's attempts and like what they're working on and find out what skills they're lacking. And then, so this is a tool that we implemented last year for the first time, and teachers were learning it. We did our professional practice goals around Lexia. So this is year 2 of our implementation. And we are using and following it with much more fidelity. There's prescription minutes, that's what they're called, that students are given so that we can see where if they start the year, if they meet the prescribed minutes, it tells us by the end of the year they'll achieve this much. So that's something that we monitor, and again, our school and our teachers' student learning objectives are written to that. So because the teachers are able, because I'm able as an instructional leader of the building to be able to monitor this in real time, it's just a very robust tool for us that we haven't had access to in previous years, and we don't have anything like it in like math or any other content area. But again, it's something that we dedicate a certain amount of time to. We have a dedicated block where students can work on this in addition to, instead of replacing that grade level instruction. And it's differentiated to meet the students where they're at. So if you have a first grader who is working in second grade material, the program delivers that material. If you have a fourth grader who's working in second grade material, it delivers that material. So those are, again, this is just a tool or a technology that we're using, but the teachers, again, the work that they're doing is really what's moving that needle.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing.
Sure, thank you. Any other questions or things I can answer?
Thank you, Carrie Jo, appreciate it. Lauren, anything to add with summer school or anything else at Friendship?
I can add a little bit about summer school. So as of right now, we have a teacher slotted to teach a getting ready for all of our sections. So that's super exciting to know that, just we have that interest within our own staff and that we'll be able to provide that for our kids. So again, structure wise, we'll offer that getting ready for, which is 8 to 10 o'clock in the morning. Again, where we'll focus more on that academic piece, and then teachers will propose an enrichment option for the second half from 10 o'clock till noon.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to middle school. Mike.
Hello, everybody. I will try to be as brief as I can, but also as detailed as possible. First and foremost, we have wrestling and girls volleyball. The seasons are underway, so support those teams. We had 2 middle school teams already make it to state for robotics. We had parent-teacher conferences this past week, and we would like to thank all the parents that attended either virtually or in person. I think the blended delivery really helped families choose a day, and that was more comfortable and convenient for them. We are doing our forward exam for each grade. It has a different schedule, so I shared that on the board report, and we're going to share that with families as those dates come about. We created a new cool tool for our morning procedures. We just needed to remind students that if they're eating breakfast, they got to be there at 7:40 in the cafeteria, and they can't leave until 7:50. And then when everyone else comes in at 7:50, that's where everyone can go to their lockers. And there are very complicated food options for the breakfast, not really, only 2, but we needed to teach those students that as well. We are reviewing our STAR data, and just in a nutshell, we saw most of our growth in mathematics, which is the first time in several years that this has happened. Mr. Broden and I collaborated working on getting a new curriculum that the math department also authorized and looked at and reviewed, called Big Ideas. And then this math curriculum, we've had professional development opportunities over the course of the last year or so. And we have seen a 16% growth from fall to winter STAR scores in 6th grade. So there are 16% more students that are at or above average. For 7th grade, it went up by 10%, and 8th grade was relatively stable. That's the highlight of our STAR score for the math portion. And for reading, our 7th and 8th grade, they've remained relatively stable, but a highlight to celebrate is that 5% more students in the 6th grade were at or above average. So the real increase doesn't happen in fall to winter, it happens from winter to spring. So hopefully we can get some more gains. And these percentages really reflect how we do on forward, maybe by a couple percentages off. So if anyone has any more questions or any sort of input that they want to provide me about the data, feel free to contact me. You can also talk to any one of our teachers. And finally, we have very good news when it comes to attendance. On Thursday of last week was the first time since this pandemic started that we have had no students out for COVID reasons and no staff out for COVID reasons. And we have very low numbers of students and that are out because of this, and hopefully that can continue to be the case. At one time this year, in the middle of STAR testing, ironically, we had up to 15% of our school students gone because of isolation or quarantine. So this is really good news. If you look at our attendance rate with COVID numbers, we are at 90% positive attendance. And without COVID, if you take those COVID related reasons out, we have 97% positive attendance. So students are attending school. They're seeing some growth in very important measures in reading and math, and we hope to continue this momentum moving forward. And now that we don't really have much to worry about when it comes to COVID spreading because our numbers are so low, we're gonna have assemblies and we're gonna have dances and just get kickstarting the extracurriculars in large groups again. So that's all that I have.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody have any questions or comments for Mike? All right, Samantha, Carl, we'll leave you off with you, Samantha.
All right. Well, let me start by just sharing. So we were the host again for our top 10 flyaway awards night last night and had about 300 people approximately from all the conference, top 10 students, their families, and then principals from our conference. So it's nice to show off our school. We do 5 to 6, our jazz band performs for the group, and Stephanie Fox and students from the cafe serve desserts and coffee and punch, and so it goes off really well. So I have a great team that works with me. And then from 6 to 7, we go in and just congratulate each student from schools. The past couple of years, we have been able to have a donation from Jim Chatterton from National Exchange Bank and Trust of $1,000. And that helps offset the cost of the plaques and items. But it's just a nice night to congratulate our top 10, and it's purely based on academics. So all of our students were there. I have on my board report and just want to again, give them a shout out. So we have 3 students that earned a 4.0 after 7 semesters. So we will have 3 students as our valedictorian and then 1 salutatorian. So we'll have a couple extra speeches for graduation, but I'm glad to have them talk. I'm not sure they are, but McKenna Leaketch is also our academic excellence scholar, so I'd like to give her again a congratulations. And she is also one of our valedictorians, and then also Wyatt Draves and Nick Cohen, and then our salutatorian is Autumn Blanca. So again, congratulations to them, 4.0 throughout everything these past couple of years, and they're in quite a few challenging courses. So just again, congratulations to them and all the top 10 students. And then just also want to, we got the results this weekend of solo ensemble. So our highest achievers who earned the starred first in their performances, and they'll be performing April 30th at UW Oshkosh. Please congratulate, if you see him, Kevin Humphrey. And he'll be returning, as he's also in past had a first star. And then also Zach Luke as a tenor solo. Kevin's a bass solo. So those are our top star students. And then also please congratulate the following students who participated, and I can share that email from Mr. Rasmussen for these students. Doug Martin, Isabel Chamberlain, Faith Tillman, Elizabeth Schneider, Maureen Kotke, Emma Martin, Amberly Clark, Ileana Last, and Teresa Hernandez, all participating in solo ensemble, and just did a great job in their performances. When we have, in the next few weeks, forensics coming up, I will share those results. Shared with you our fishing team. I know Pat Colby was really disappointed in himself, and I told him, hey, this is not you, but we earned second out of 60 teams in the state. We have such a strong fishing program with Pat Colby, a lot of our dads that are helping out. It is just a great organization. So by a matter of 12 inches, I believe it was, otherwise they would have earned first. We had a fish that unfortunately got DQ'd, but just great job to them. Second out of 60 teams, competing against, large schools. Appleton North was the team who ended up first and actually said, hey, we know you guys were the real winners. So shout out to them. On Friday, we'll give a special send off to our power lifters. We have a group of young ladies and men who are traveling to state. So just really proud of all their hard work and efforts in the weight room. I think what was mentioned, our VEX robotics team also recently received, I believe it was the most creative award, the judges award. So congratulations to them. Good luck to our boys who have a home game on Tuesday. Our girls had a great season last week. So again, just shout out to all of their hard work and their efforts. I know they were sad to see the game on Friday and the way it did, but just, they've had a great run. Tuesday, March 8th is our testing day for the state. That is the first date for the ACT. So we are finishing our ACT prep this week. So a thank you to Sam Barassa, Amy Sabo, Ashley Price, and Tom Moffey. They're running our 4 areas for our juniors for ACT prep. And then Wednesday and Thursday, if we need to, we run through what we're required to do on the bubble sheets and that for ACT for students to get them ready for that assessment on Tuesday. And then we will have them all, or have them already, but divided into rooms of 10 or based on any accommodation that they need. And they will be the only ones in our building on Tuesday to come in and take that state assessment. If we have students who are out, there are 2 alternate dates. So we will work to do our best to get all of those students tested. Couple other things to share. Let me just see here. There will be one addition to our course description booklet. So Ramsey Immel right now in Fayed teaches our CAP course in Fayed, which is really great for kids. Within her Fayed class, kids can choose to add the kinesiology CAP credit. They can add the CPR credit. And now next year, she is also able to add an archery credit. So we're excited about that. I'm looking for some different things, badminton, you name it, just to give students those opportunities. And then just lastly, so with the counselors right now, we're trying to finalize getting the rest of the remaining schedules in so that I can start to look at section numbers and begin that massive puzzle with them. We are also just finalizing the last couple of incompletes from first semester. We had some kids who really struggled to get back to school for concussions or other illness injuries. So once those are out, then we'll be able to roll out our honor roll and give that information to parents. But we're looking at what we need to run for summer school and have a couple of people who hopefully will be helping us out for summer school. And I know as we look at facilities and planning, as you take a look at the high school numbers, we are, I believe, according to Kayla, talking to her yesterday, we might have a spot or 2 in our senior class, otherwise we are completely full. So,
All right.
It's a good problem to have.
Thanks, Samantha. Any questions, Samantha, before we go to Carl with a little bit of athletics update? And then to Samantha's point too, we're gonna, we'll figure out a good time to get the solo ensemble state qualifiers, powerlifting qualifiers, our fishing team, to come and recognize them at the board meeting. So, a lot of great success.
Samantha, I have a question about Challenge Day. I know they've pretty much shut down over the last 2 years, but any update on that? Are we gonna be able to do that this year or looking into next year?
I'm hoping next year. Yeah, they were still doing virtual and offering some different things, and we just, as a group, did not think that was going to go over very well. You know, Steve, it's such a powerful message, and we just really feel like we needed those people in person. So I'll begin working with Springs and Lamira again to have them back in the fall.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
When we get it set, I will help you recruit the board members to participate. I think
Thank you. I
so
appreciate that.
FYI, so I'm at the girls, or the boys game last week, and Steve and his daughter were sitting up in the stands, and they were by a couple of students. And one of the students says, "Who's that guy up there?" And they're pointing right at Steve. He was in my group at Challenge Day. I remember him. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all it is. It's a good thing.
the only two that recognize me coming in and sitting down were two other kids from one of my groups one of the years, and it's a neat program, really special.
All right, Carl, we'll turn it over to you, and if you want to right now, since as we go through it, we have Ken Wolf for football. If you want to just, since you have the stage right now, address, he's extra duty that I'm gonna recommend to the board. So just a quick update on athletics, winter into the spring, and then a little bit about Coach Wolf. You're not on mute or anything like that. You're not gonna order a buck or anything.
There we go. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Samantha stole my thunder a little bit with especially the powerlifters going to state, because as they all remind me before every board meeting, I forgot to mention them in my first board meeting. So they ask me every week, every day of the board meeting to make sure that I mention powerlifting. So I'm going to mention them. Our girls game was really great on Friday night. It was hard to see their season end, but for an 11 seed to get there, and they were within 3 points with 15 seconds left. It was a great season. And also with the girls, Coach Keel is now going to be a Hall of Famer. So if you see him, make sure you congratulate him. We had a great celebration of him at halftime of the boys game last Thursday. And we're looking forward to that boys playoff game tomorrow night. So hopefully we can pack the house and create a great atmosphere. And then we're planning for spring. Some of the spring sports actually start next Monday on the 7th. So it's a quick turnaround. Some of our athletes are getting less than a week off, or in some cases, no time off before they start their next sport. As far as Coach Wolf, he has a little bit of experience in our program as far as having been a part of the spring alternate season last year and then being a part of this fall. So he knows our program and knows our kids, but he has an outside experience from coaching up in Oshkosh, so he can bring some different perspective, and he's been really excited to get started. I probably get 5 or 6 text messages about football a day from him. So he's really excited. So he's excited I'm assuming he's watching this to see that approval. So we can do a big announcement to the community and really get going and continue that work that our former coaching staff did and keep bringing our football program to the next level.
All right, and the only other sport I'm going to say is wrestling. We'll give them a shout out. Had some people go to sectional, so excited to see how that goes. Excited for the future of wrestling. So shout out to you too, Samantha. Just a big thank you for, I don't think you gave enough credit to the school district and what you do for that flyway. We have that. Dale Fridley, Commissioner Fridley asked us, and I know you take the big lead on that. So thank you very much. I know that you're at the core of doing that. So that's much appreciated. And it's, if anybody has a chance next year, I'll make sure people come to our school that night and like, wow. And it's a neat thing. It's a neat thing for us to host. And then Carl, also, thanks again for all you're doing with athletics. Look forward to the spring and see what we can do.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on, we will now go to Tiffany. Let's hear about the Trefford Way for the Exceptional Mind.
Thank you. The first thing I had in our board report is twice a year, we have to send in a report to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. And that is, when we got our grant, we had 4 goals that we report on to them in areas that we want to see growth. So our first goal is that 100% of our students will demonstrate growth on our functional communication rubric. So that's assessed by our teachers 2 times a year. So when we look at the end of last school year, the last time we did it, we had 57% of our students making growth. 9% have stayed the same, 0 have gone down, and we have 20 new students. So we're hoping to see the rest of the students make growth when we reassess in the spring. So definitely a great start there. Our second goal is that all of our students will complete the STAR early literacy or reading assessments and math assessments. And we're looking for 85% of our students to demonstrate growth in those assessments. So again, since the start of the year, we've had 79% students make growth in early literacy or reading, and then 84% of our students have made growth in math so far. So we're really close to that goal there. And then our third goal is that each semester we survey our parents just to see how they're feeling about how things are going at our school. We had 70% of our families respond to our survey. Of these families, 100% are satisfied with the social emotional skills that their students are developing at our school. 93.8% of families are satisfied with the academic skills their students are developing. And 93.8% are satisfied with the career and college readiness skills their students are developing. So we love getting those results, and then the parents can also give us feedback or comments. So we definitely read through those and discuss them as a staff as well. And then our last goal that we report on is that we'll do at least 2 informational presentations or outreach events each year, and that we'll survey the people who came after the event just to see if they have a better understanding of who we are and what we do at Treffert Way. And we were really excited. For the first time in 2 years, we welcomed people for informational meetings regarding our lottery and enrollment and talking about our school and what we have to offer. And of the families that took the survey, all of them 100% replied that they had a better understanding, felt their questions were answered. So we're excited to have more in-person events with COVID numbers on the heading down. And then other highlights, we've been working with the Fond du Lac Master Gardeners since the 2019-20 school year. We had an initial grant from them that we used to purchase some hydroponics systems that multiple classes have gotten to use this year. And we are now working with them through a new grant to design and create a sensory garden that will be incorporated to our outdoor space and playground area that we're working on. And then with those donations that were mentioned earlier, $3,000 from Judith Berger and $1,300 from Lloyd Leland, we'll be using those to go for some outdoor benches and or storage sheds that will also be incorporated into our playground. And then hopefully I'll have more information to share on that at our next meeting, but we have some meetings set up with Burke to really talk about the design and what that space will look like for us. And then also we have officially, our board submitted the grant for Treffert Way High School. So we'll find out in June whether or not we received that grant from the state. And then the last update is our enrollment period closed on February 18th. We had 24 applicants as of now. And our lottery will be taking place this Wednesday, March 2nd at 11 o'clock. There will be a live link to watch that, and then that will determine who is accepted this year as well as our waitlist order. And I think that's all I have. Any questions?
So didn't we buy 2 of those hydroponic units?
Those are different. The hydroponic units that we have, Aeromark uses to grow lettuce, they have different ones.
Oh, okay.
So Tiffany's talking about a whole different.
Okay.
We have one too, Mr. Zeta.
Yeah, we have one there and one at the elementary.
Yep.
So out of those 24 applicants, I'm sorry, how many are accepted?
So next year, our enrollment numbers, we're gonna have 60 students. So right now we have 2 open seats. Our board voted tonight that those 2 seats will go to kindergarten. And then we set target numbers for each grade level. And then if we have students that move out of the district or choose to leave over the summer, the biggest differential between actual students and our target number for each grade level is how we'll decide where the next open seat will go.
Wow, awesome.
All right, well, thank you, Tiffany. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, now what we'll do is we'll go to student services. I don't know, Chris was on I don't know if are you there, Chris? And I know that she was just coming back from being out of state. So Judy, do you have any updates or anything?
I don't think I have anything beyond what she already has in the notes. Do you want me to read the notes?
No, I've got it.
Good at reading them?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't have anything more
All
than
right.
that.
All right, cool. All right, so then what we'll do is we'll move on to Adam.
Yeah, a lot of great things said, so just a couple things of note for the board. You know, Samantha mentioned at the high school, but we have a lot of state testing taking place for the next couple of months, so starting with ACT. And, you know, Samantha didn't mention this, but I always like to just throw out to our board and recognize Samantha and her team. You know, that's the one assessment across the state that typically the high school personnel take the lead on that, and then as a, you know, director, I'm just there to support if needed and, you know, to help out. So always appreciate her help with that and her taking the lead with her team, so that's great. And then we have board exam and the DLM coming up in about a month here, so getting buildings ready for that, getting schedules ready. People have been trained, so kind of get just in a good spot with that. And then we have ACT Aspire, which is another high school assessment coming up in April. So again, just kind of this big windows coming up, and just to remind the board, all of those assessments then go into those reports we saw earlier in the year. So our state report cards just show those data points from these state assessments that are taking place right now. And later on in the year, when we look at our federal report cards, again, that's coming, or those will be coming back, I should say probably next year. Those federal report cards also have those state assessments are the majority of the data that goes into that. So, and with all that too, I'll just mention with all the assessment, just a lot of teamwork that goes on between the people at buildings and myself, and then a lot of work at the individual buildings to help prepare for that. So definitely want to recognize those people that are part of that and doing things that sometimes they don't even know about to make sure that's successful. And then the other piece just to note is that, you know, this is a time of year where for myself and the staff I collaborate with just kind of have our feet in both school years. So, you know, obviously starting to want to finish the year strong and accomplish the goals that we had set out, and then also looking ahead to next year and, you know, behind the scenes contacting different people and researching things that we might bring in to help with student learning as we move forward next year. So I'm excited as doing some of that behind the scenes work and then meeting with teams to kind of finalize some of those pieces as we get closer. So yeah, that's all for me. Any questions from the board?
I have Adam, about the growth aspect of the testing.
Yeah.
I seem to recall, if I'm remembering right, that this latest work in Madison, there was talk about removing that from the state report card situation, and you know, we do very well, as I recall, in the growth aspect and helping our scores and stuff. And do you know, is that happening, or will that be something the governor will veto with other bills?
Yeah, nothing on that front, and we'll kind of have to still wait and see with that growth piece. And yeah, like Steve said, so typically those report cards look at both that growth, so 1 year to the next, or even multiple years, and then that achievement piece of how many students are at proficiency. So right now, yep, status quo, but state always keeps us on our toes, and things can change. So like you said, with different policies, so we'll see how that looks in the future. But I can keep the board updated too as those things come up. I can add that to either these kind of open conversations or onto the notes. But great question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else from the leadership team that I haven't called out, that anybody has anything I think Dave, you're on, but you're good to go unless you want to say anything. Maria, you already had your time. Dave, you want to say anything? Live from Highway 45?
Everything's been going good. My staff, I gotta give them a shout out. They have, in the last 2 years, but in the last 2 months, they've really stepped it up with the cleaning process and taking things into their own hands and covering for just about anything I've asked them to do.
A big shout out to Dave. Last week was a real interesting weather time, so thank you for being up at about 2, 3 in the morning almost every day last week.
You bet, thanks.
Can I add on to the shout outs to Dave's team? Just so the board knows and how grateful we are, Lauren and I both have expressed this, but we want to do it publicly as well. The team at FLC has been outstanding, not only with buildings and grounds and the regular cleaning and upkeep of the building, but they do pitch in to help us out with our morning arrival, which every day they're out there and we really appreciate that. They're helping out in the lunchroom right now, as is Julie Ebers from Aramark, and we're just really grateful for that help. So it's something that's, again, we wanted to make sure not just Dave and his team know, but others know as well. We really appreciate that.
Now, there's nothing better than going and seeing elementary lunch being supervised by Ron and Sean. It's amazing. It's amazing. All right, well, thank you, everybody. And now we'll move on to the next part. So, and the next part is, we'll go, probably, I'm not gonna go too in-depth, but we have talked about facilities and operations and referenda, and Lions and Tigers, oh my. And this is, we're at a point right now where we're gonna start to put some more rubber to the road and look at what our needs are. Samantha had said, we're looking at already, I think the high school's at 467, it was built for 460. You'll see in the past I've shown or given you some from Baird, the model of how we're, what our enrollment is looking like. We knew that from when we invested and we asked the community what was the most important thing. That in a couple of years ago, they said, it said elementary. And now because of that, we see our continued growth, we have needs at the middle and the high school. So really what I want to do is go through this document. This is a kind of a first answer and how it lays things out. And you'll see it's called Facilities, Strategic Plan and Operations. And talking with Maria, just the reality of what we're doing, facilities, and specifically now with how schools are funded, when we look at inflation, when we look at, as earlier you heard Ted talk about the HR part and affording staff, we look at utilities, we look at all that. As we continue to grow and as we continue to look at adding to our footprint and facilities, operations are also a big part of that. One doesn't go without the other. So I think it's really important that as we go through this process, we're very transparent and clear that we're looking at talking to the community and talking with the board, talking with the staff about making some more investment into our schools. So as this is laid out, what I'll do is I'll go over it and then I'll ask the board if there's any questions or input. And how this is all going to come to fruition is I'm proposing that we go to a facilities focus group. Now, there's a difference between a focus group and a committee, and I'll explain why that is as we go through it. And what would happen is in 2 weeks from tonight, we'd have our first facilities focus group and start talking about what a possible referendum in November could look like for capital improvements, and also start talking about what operations look like. We don't have as much information about that. We do know that there could be some very big challenges, or there will be in the future when we look financially. And it's not just us, it's in general with many different aspects of education in different areas. So that's really what the end goal is looking at starting to get the engagement of the community and finding out where we're at, what we're doing, which will also, I'm gonna recommend that we look at doing another poll from school perceptions in May and get that input. And not only that, but also that number that Ted talked about, would you recommend this school to others? We can get that information from the community too, which I will recommend we add to that survey as we look going down this route. So what I did here is you can see that first the goals, those goals were created in 2014 by the facilities committee and they haven't changed. When we look at our facilities, it's about creating a physical environment that promotes the development of students who are college, career, and life ready. Create facilities that are physically safe and accommodate physical needs of all stakeholders. And create facilities that are as energy and personnel cost efficient as possible. So those are our goals as we look to what we're going to invest in far as building. So you can see this is an Aaron Sadoff overview. So Steve, you might have a little bit more information about specifics. But really, we can go back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s when Friendship Learning Center was built. And we consolidated from Lakeside School, from Elmwood, we came to one elementary school. After that, you can see that in the 1990s, early 2000s, that's when we saw the construction of the first referendum of Horace Mann High School. And then from Horace Mann High School, they moved to the new building. Bessie Allen came from ELC. All of a sudden, now we have Early Learning Center, which was developed from that building process back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Then in 2010, 2012, that was when we utilized some QZAB money, some no interest loans, and also about $500,000 in donations, and we renovated the whole athletic complex. And that was from private donations and district funded. And then in 2015, and I stayed on the spring of 2014, that actually went into then 15, the facility study of the district formation, and then that facilities committee came out of that also. And that committee then was utilizing those goals. So I have a misprint up top. It should be 2015, so I apologize for that. And then in April 2017, after we did all that work, and there was a lot of meetings we went through, remember Braid went ahead and we looked at what our long-term needs were for all of our different facilities. We put out a survey, and the community said, we're looking that we would invest in the middle and the elementary school a lot more than we would in the middle and high school, because that referendum had just passed. And also community pretty much says, we just invested in the athletic complex, we're gonna take a pass. We think our money needs to be invested in one of these other academic and facility areas. So I was really, really proud that that $29.5 million referendum passed by almost 70%, 69.9%. And then we're sitting in one of the things that came to fruition from that. And what that facility, or what that referendum does, is gave us Friendship Learning Center. We updated a lot of different areas in middle and high school, parking lots, did some things at ELC. We didn't get everything done, but we got some things done. So now what we do is, and then also for the summer of 2021, we purchased Presentation for the Trefford Way for the Exceptional Mind. So as we reflect, our district has done a lot to invest in the facilities. And as we heard from our audit, and also as Ted had alluded, we have a destination district, and that has a lot to do with our culture and our staff, but also our facilities are second to none. And when we talk from an equity standpoint, every student, it doesn't matter if you live in Ashwood Grove, Gaslight Terrace, on Michigan Avenue, Creekview Drive, or on Highway 45, every kid gets this. Every kid gets all of our facilities. That's a pretty neat thing. And that investment, I have not heard from one community member, boy, we spent too much on our schools. And now that we have our walking track open again, now that I see that we have, we open up our gyms, so our youth basketball, robotics, we, with the Springs Department with them and rent different facilities, have really tried to open up our schools to the community for this to be a really great hub. So now, when we look at our current overview of facility needs, first off, before I go any farther, any questions on kind of a recap? Do you see anything that I missed? Okay. Current overview of facilities, you can see that, and I put the capacity level that we have at each one of the buildings. And right now, FLC is pretty much up to date. There's really no real big investment there. ELC, we have the demolition of the old building. Remember, we did have that as a proposal as part of the first referendum, but then when we saw needs of roofs and things at Bessie Allen, the decision was, let's invest more in things that will help maintain our spaces and tearing down. We'll look at that later on. Also, ELC, some windows and roofs, new playground, and also a new parking and traffic plan. Bessie Allen, additional space and renovation to increase population of students and educational needs. Same thing at Horace Mann. And then the OAC, we still have not addressed any locker rooms or any other practice facilities out there or concession stands. So there are some needs there too. So these are just the overall needs that we had identified and we still haven't addressed, that we look forward to doing in the next referendum if that's how the community district decide to go. So then when we look at a facilities or operations focus group creation, the reason it's not called a facilities committee is I don't believe that we need to go get input about what we need. I think we pretty much know what we need because we did that through the facility study. We just haven't completed all of those needs. Pete, you have a question? Okay. So with that, what I'm doing is I'm working currently to get some kind of ideas and mock-ups so that the idea would be on March 7th, 14th, and then the subsequent meetings. Hey, community, this is what we're looking at. What do you think? What input you have about what we're thinking about doing? And then when we start looking at operations, kind of explaining the financial part of it, like how much would this cost? What would this look at the mill rate? What should a survey look like? What do you feel is something that's tangible or other ideas that you have? So it's not creating a plan based on input from the community. It's here's what we have for our needs. Here's kind of our first answer. What do you think? And that's a whole different thing. And I want to be very upfront about the process because I don't want us to be disingenuous community. We already know the different needs we have. It's just at what level do we want to meet them and what does the community think about our plans? And then it's really going to be up to the, the community and with the board, and after we get data and information about what we would ask for a referendum going forward. So the proposed dates for that facilities focus group, and I put operations in there because I think they kind of go hand in hand. And if we look at increasing size, I'll talk about operations on the bottom, would be 2 weeks from now, March 14th at 5 to 7, and then April 18th, and then May 23rd and June 27th, all 2 hours. And they would be open to the public. And it would be more of a sharing information, talking about the facilities, and getting some feedback from what the community thinks. Any questions on any of that so far?
So the 115 and 120 bands and horse band, that's what we have right now?
Correct.
Okay. And so what do we want to go up to, the 125?
Well, actually 120, if we take 4 times 120, it's 480, which is 20 more than what we have capacity for. So that's when Samantha, like we have 467 already. So it's not so much of adding more space, because we know if you would look also then at the bottom part, which let's see. If you look at our enrollment, our projected enrollments, you can see the different numbers, and Baird did this. And you can see the different numbers so this year we're at 1,552 kids. Next year is projected to be 1,548. You can see it keeps going up. And we're looking at a projection of 115 and let's just go 23, 24. 115, 135, 124, 120. So we're already looking. So what I would see is we would look at probably having open enrollment closed and being able only to serve the students that move here, depending on what our space is. So we're already going to be with our upcoming projections already busting at the seams.
In open enrollment, meaning the kids that are already open enrolling would still be part of it?
Yes. It would we add new ones to it. Now, as we would increase the size, like another thing when we look at operations, if we wanted to look at maintaining or adding things, we could add, another section at a couple of elementary grade levels to keep those numbers down. Also, if we want to continue to have all of the resources and offerings for our high school and middle school, we would need more staff also for that. So they kind of go together. And also as we create the spaces, we know there's going to be more cost in maintaining those spaces too. So we're already looking at a projection of growth. So we know that we need growth. We need building to meet where we're going. And then we also need to really be smart and think about what does that future, because as I was talking with Maria earlier today, we don't want to be reactive. We want to be as proactive as we possibly can to make sure that that we have what we need to serve our community. For instance, when we've been over levying in order to do some debt defeasance, that's already helping us in order to, putting money away so we can help with paying off our debt earlier, which could have a huge impact on what that mill rate is if we do go to referendum. So met with Mike Clark and just recently, and Maria, one of the key parts of all this as we go through is looking at taxes, what we're going to be asking from the community, what could we afford that the community be okay with. All those things have conversations that we need to talk about. But right now, I think we're in a good place. And really what the goal would be is to have these conversations the next few months, get a survey out at the end in May, get that data back at our June meeting. And then if we see that there is, that this is something that is really palatable and supported by community, go to referendum in November. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, the cost of building is not going to go down. And if we look at our projections, our enrollment is going to continue to go up. So I don't think that we're at dire needs right now, but I also want to do our due diligence to be as proactive as we can moving forward. So that's kind of where we're looking at as far as this facilities operations and focus group and the dates for that. And really after this meeting, the next thing I would do is next week, I would put something out, to the community and anybody here, and we're on Oriole TV. Anybody interested, it'd be in this room, 5 o'clock, probably go over the different objectives at that time. Might already have some kind of ideas of what we think the district would need as far as kind of like an outline of facilities, what that would look like. And then from there, we can really start to hone those in. And then the next step would be working on getting that survey going so that we can get that data and information and communicate. And with the survey, the neatest thing is, it's not just about getting information from our community. It's also communicating to our community what we're thinking about doing and what ideas that we have. So I really look forward to this engagement as being very similar to our last referendum process, because I think it really helps to be open and have the community see what's going on. And we know that high quality schools do nothing more than add value to our properties too, and have more people want to move here. So that's really, any questions on that? Like the difference between a committee and a focus group, or kind of like overall, then I'll talk a little bit about the operations and the partners after I answer any questions.
So how many people are gonna be, I mean, what was your idea of the number of people in the group? And then it's basically all community members.
Correct.
Is there gonna be, I don't know, teachers or administrators, or, I mean, anybody else on it, or just?
Well, all of you could.
I don't wanna say just.
Administrators could. I think, like the administrators and the teachers, now we could have teachers, administrators that are community members with kids. I think when we would look at, as we go forward, we look at planning this, and how we did in the last referendum is, once we get these ideas, I'll go to Samantha in the high school, Mike in the middle school, talk with Dave and his crew and all of the other leadership team and say, what do we need? Well, what's out there now, what rooms do we need different things in? What does that look like? And really get that generated so we get that information. But really, it's kind of getting an idea of what it could possibly cost, how we could work that within our levy. And then I would say, Vicki, the majority of people in that group would be community members, but it'd be open to anybody. But I would engage our other stakeholders, our teacher and administrators, at a different forum, if you will.
Sure.
One of the things on, you said we have no dire needs right now, so this is more focused on what's coming up or what will be coming in, right?
We have significant needs right now. Matter of fact, at the high school and middle school, we have no extra rooms. We had to add lockers up to the senior hallway. So nothing dire, but we have needs right now. If we had more space, we'd definitely utilize that in the middle and high school. Would you say, Mike and Samantha, is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, just to give you an idea, Steve, so our, Jose Chavez does not have a classroom in the high school. He has to use a Bessie Allen room. I don't have an extra room for interventionists to use. We actually cleared out our uniforms and compiled them into the Oriole TV room, so we needed another space for outside counseling to come in. And then people who teach part-time, share classrooms. So when someone says, hey, I needed a classroom for a day, I don't have any.
Yep.
So we definitely, are really hopeful for extra space. Plus just like I have shared with Aaron, when we are at 120 plus, teachers are teaching 6 classes, and probably, I don't even remember how many years ago, really wanted to bring them down to 5 classes, and just haven't been able to do that. So high school staff has a pretty heavy load. Not only that it's 6 classes a day, and then that's their lunch and prep, but their classes are full. So, with new classrooms, if we increase over 120 and we keep, growing, we're gonna have to look at additional staff as well.
Yep, which comes in operation. Also, Samantha, just like in the comments, so if we have 460 kids right now, that's 230 per lunch. And that counts as over.
Lunch the way that, and feel free to stop at any time. So our tables in the commons are all out and are full. We have 4 tables that we have upstairs, and students sit there. We have the opportunity, and then we have tables along the FIAD wall, long tables that kids sit there. We don't have any space.
And then if we look at also, and we'll go more to middle school, but also the high school, we don't have any collaboration spaces, really, besides the common at the high school. And then when we look at middle school, the building, it wasn't built, it was Horace Mann High School. It wasn't built as a middle school to kind of continue with our learning lands and kind of the collaboration and community that we have at the elementary school. Up at the middle school, we don't have anything like that. So not only is it added space, but it's how the space is organized and used that can really have a huge impact in student behavior, student achievement, student growth, all those things.
Well, and just to give one thing that teachers and kids have said to me, second floor, there's 1 set of bathrooms. So if they have a class on second floor, there's often a line outside of those bathrooms. And so we have to kind of, watch that for tardy issues, because you can't fault a kid if they are truly just standing outside the bathroom waiting. So unique problems, again, with a bigger population.
So nothing dire, but it's, once again, we want to be on top of things. We know this isn't a blip. We know this, and we look at what our enrollments are here and we see that trending. So this is the right time at the right thing. And then financially been really working, just like we did with our referendum before, to make it so it's affordable for our community.
Okay, one small question, but part of it, with the projections, I remember doing this in the past where the birth rate was an element of projections, and, have we looked into that, or is that part of what Baird does here with?
I can look more into that. I can't speak intelligently about what I think they call this the mortality rate model.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what all goes into it, but I'll take it for what it is. And we've seen it. I mean, if we just look at our past, our projections, and we look at, our full-time equivalencies and what that has looked like, and our open enrollment. And right now our FTE that went down a few, but a lot of that has to do with students and families that lived here that couldn't find housing, and they bought a house outside of the district, and then they open enroll back in. So we've seen that also too. So we'll see how in the future how things go, because there is room for building, and so I think we'll see more people moving here too.
So as the birth rate, if it would go down, will we increase our open enrollment space then? Is that?
Yeah, well, what we do is, just as you did in January, set those limits for classes. So, I mean, that's one of the things, and that's creating that environment, that community where, we have Oshkosh, 10,000, Fond du Lac, 6,700, and then we have Laconia and we have Lemire, which are quite a bit less than us. I think that we're the third largest school district in Fond du Lac County. Sans Fond du Lac and Ripon is a little bit bigger than us, and then they go into other counties too. So we're really we're at and we offer different things than what Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, than what Laconia can offer, because we're in that really sweet spot. So we have a lot of, and throwing the Trefford way for the exceptional mind. So I think we are in a very attractive district, and that doesn't happen just because, but it also is going to take investment, and it's also going to take, I think, some vision, and that's what we're trying to do here to get ahead of the game. Not only from a standpoint of facilities, but then the next part I'll talk about is operations.
Okay.
All right, so then the bottom part, if we look at the operations and we look at possible non-recurring operational referendum, a couple things come to mind here. As far as the school district has gotten more federal money, those ESSER funds, which are those one-time monies which will be gone, which we are not using for recurring costs, which we should, and that's not a fiduciary thing to do. But we haven't seen any more increased money from the state this past year or the next year, and if it's been marginal. So going into next year, we already know that we're not going to have any new money per student that because of the biennial budget. Understanding that, we got 4.7 for CPI. We've already heard Oshkosh saying we're going to get 4.7% raises. We know utilities are going up. We know the cost of everything is increasing, and we also know that we're not going to get any more per student next year. That's just what it is. I mean, I'm not complaining. That's the way that our budget is set up right now. That's the way that the funding is. So understanding that and knowing that we are continually at a 2-year budgeting cycle, we don't know what's going to happen after this coming year. There'll be another group getting together, joint finance. At this time next spring, it's going to be pretty interesting. That's where we're going to start looking at the budget for the next 2 years. But also when we look at increased costs through utilities and personnel, inflation, and all aspects of operation, Samantha had brought up about at the high school, trying to get our teachers to not have to teach overloads or not to be teaching every period. Our class sizes, we know we like to have smaller class sizes at the elementary, specifically when we get kindergarten and first grade. So we know all those things cost. We also know at the high school, we offer a lot of classes from business to tech ed to Spanish to a lot of electives, our CAP classes and FIED all over. We have a lot of different offerings. So we know that those also don't always have 20, 30 kids in them. So that costs money too, because you don't have, as some other school districts might have an economy of scale, we don't get that sometimes. So knowing that if we want to keep what we're doing moving forward, that's going to cost some more money. Also competitive compensation for staff. I think we're pretty good now, but we'll see what happens. I mean, when you start seeing, you go to Quick Trip or Walmart and you can get hired for X with benefits. I mean, when we look at our non-certified staff, that plays into things. We also start looking at now that since Act 10, you know, money's not everything, but we're gonna have to continue to be competitive with salaries for our staff. Right now, I believe Fond du Lac might be at 42,000. I think Oshkosh is at 43. I think Nina's at 44. Yes, different districts, different sizes. We're currently at $40,000 for entry-level education. So those are different things we're gonna have to look at as we look forward to what type of staff that we're gonna be able to recruit, retain, and then reward. And then currently with our, with that last part, without any predictive income, we don't have that currently right now at the state. We really, I think, as we tie these things together, and plus we look at our fund balance, as what we saw with the comments from our auditors, we have added to our fund balance every year for the past decade. But our fund balance percentage is less because our costs are going up and we have more students that we're serving, our budget's increased. So even though we're doing a good job staying within our means, the percentage of our budget is now, our fund balance is less. And we know that, so we don't have to short-term borrow, plus if there is something, we need to have that savings so that we can go forward. So that's another thing that we need to look at, not so much building that fund balance, but getting it to a point where it is that 20% so that we can have that financial stability. So with all that information about operating costs and looking at the facility, I really believe it's peanut butter and jelly. I think it's mixed together. I think that we need to, I think that the board and the community that really need to look at how that works together and then see what our comprehensive long-range plan is. And I think by articulating it, I don't, you know, it's not that everybody's going to agree with everything that we're saying, but I really think it's important that this is the time where we make a plan to try to be as proactive as we can for our facilities and space and operations. So what my proposal is that we follow this plan. And how do we follow this preparation plan? This is going to be something that I'm going to recommend when we get to the new business, where I want to look at currently, let's look at this group of people. So when we look at when we do anything over $10,000, we have to get at least more than one bid for our projects. When it's 70,000 or more, the board needs to give okay on those contracts. Now I'll bring contracts less than $70,000 numerous times so the board can have it. That's what our policy says. Now, when we look at these things, for instance, you look at Baird and PMA, there's no cost right now. PMA, we did select and they were our bond management, but they help us with looking at projections just as Baird does. So that really isn't one that's a high cost. We just utilize them all the time. Bray we've utilized for our facility study and our architects. They also helped us with communication and referendum planning and information. So that was one where we did go to a RFP for the facility study. And then the board was like, hey, they know all of our stuff. They're good partners. And then we kept them as our architects. So right now, there's no extra costs right now for Bray. But if things come to fruition, we keep moving, there could very well be. Then Rattler is, we met them when we did our Oriole Athletic Complex. Any of those pictures that you see where we look at the traffic patterns and the parking and we look at our drainage and erosion, that's Rattler. So Rattler would have their hands in everything and they help us give engineering and opportunities to look at what costs would be so we can have that bigger picture. And that's really important, I think, too, for conceptualizing for the community and everybody here what that looks like. Our future and our ideas. And then C.D. Smith, who's been a great partner since the referendum, they're not costing anything right now, but I can call Greg Sobel up, Clint can work with C.D. Smith and Tricia, and they'll say, hey, we're looking at X. What square footage? What are you seeing for trends so that when we throw a number out to the community, we want to increase 20,000 square feet, it could possibly cost this. So that's another partner that was part of our team. And then the final one is School Perceptions. Their cost for doing the survey and everything is like about $96,000. And you've all met Bill Foster. He's been, not everybody, but most of you have met Bill and he does a great job. We don't get charged anything until the process is done and we're okay with the process. So what I would say is I'm going to ask the board, and now this is more symbolic in many cases than anything that's legally having to do, but I want to cover the bases. And I also want to recommend that I don't see any need to go and try to find another architect or facility study group. I don't see any need to go out and find another construction management group that we can get information ideas from. I don't see any other reason to go find a different company that can do what School Perception does with surveying. And with Baird and PMA, they've been great partners, they always have been. So my recommendation is that these are partners, that we continue to use these partners, which we have been working with since 2015 and beyond, to help us with this planning. And I think not only utilizing these partners will give us high quality service, but it'll save us, I think, a lot of money because they already know our stuff, they already understand our processes, we've already worked with them, so the learning curve there is none. It really isn't. So looking at this kind of 2-page kind of a summary, I'd like the board to kind of digest this. Any questions that you have on this? I know that I just got to this today because I've been working on formulating, working with different groups. But really the key would be is what I just explained to all of you right now would be what that March 14th date would look like, along with, along with maybe some conceptualizing, like at the high school, what would a big idea be of what we would add to the high school? What would that look like? What would we add to Bessie L? What would that look like? What are the needs of FLC? And they have some like pictures with boxes that nothing really technical, but can have a better idea that can make it tangible. Share the process, share the information, share the first ideas, then take that input, create something from that input more, get School Perceptions involved a little bit more, create that survey if that's the route that we want to go, which I'd highly recommend that we do. And then in May, we get that survey out. And then in June, that survey comes back, we evaluate it, and moving forward, I've shared with the board also that Gantt chart, if you will, with the different dates of what this would look like. So just overall, I wanted to take this time and to explain kind of what's been kind of, I think, percolating. We've talked about, operational or building referendums. I've been mentioning those for the past half year, not a little longer. And I wanted something more tangible that the community members and that all of you could have more of a tangible idea of what I'm recommending and from all the input that I've got.
So a comment and a concern. So, without a doubt, we went through a good legal and ethical choice when we picked these partners originally. And we put out we put out requests and we chose these folks. And certainly I agree that they know us. And in many cases, I think there's work that's been done that we did not do. So for instance, all the architectural renderings of the second story of the Commons, that work's already been done. You could say, okay, we're going to do this project now. You would go forward and do a request for making sure that the builders and the materials are. So I don't disagree that these are great partners and we've chosen them using a good process. The only concern that I have is what is the optics on it? So, and maybe I'm just out in left field.
Well, there's 2 stages, Pete. The first stage is the planning part. And I would hope that we can create a narrative and provide the data and information that shows this is something that's needed, okay? I don't know, just like in the last one, I am not predicting anything's gonna pass. I am not counting any of my chickens right now with the eggs. If we would go to referendum and it would pass, then we have a decision. Who do we want for a construction management firm? Who do we want for our architect? Who do we want for those things? Because at that time, now we're talking significant amounts of money that these people be, and at that time, the board can decide that then what I would do is say, here's who we've utilized. And just like I did with Bray, we said, do you want me to go to a request for proposal for our architect when Bray's been here and they know these things? Do you want me to do that? But when we already know, and the board decided, no, we'll stay with Bray. So we did do a request for proposal for architects. C.D. Smith, remember we did a request for proposal. We had them, I think it was Keller, and we had Commonwealth. Yep. So we did that then too. So we've been through that process. So as far as the optics go, I'm being as transparent. I think that my recommendation is for the planning purposes for sure, we have these partners that already know us, that are willing to do things for us at no or low cost. And I think for the taxpayer, I think if we can deliver and utilize and leverage the companies that we've already used of high quality, it's gonna cost us less and the learning curve is very low. I think that's a win-win for everybody. Just to go through the process of, okay, let's go do another facilities studies RFP. Let's go and put out an RFP for our survey. I think number one, with the timeline that we're looking at, that would be a little stretch. But number two, I really don't know of any other industry standards groups that I would recommend going with, because these groups have been working with referendums all around the state and what we know. So the optics I see are that we're trying to do the best to save money and get the best product at this time. That's what I would see.
Yeah, I think the key here is that all of them did an excellent job. And, if we had some concerns about some of the things, we might want to talk about bringing somebody in. But again, if the community knows that we're using the same people because we were very satisfied with them, I don't think that'd be a problem.
And I think there's a huge savings. I mean, if we would have Architect B come in, start doing renderings, or if we went and
They're going to start from scratch.
yeah, and these groups already have all that stuff. And here's the deal. I really firmly believe when we looked at, like, for instance, talking with Clint from Bray, who was with us all the way. When we looked at our construction management costs, C.D. Smith, one thing he said out front, he says, you're getting the hometown discount already. I feel very strongly that all these partners are trying to gouge us and take advantage for this past work. They really want to do a good job and they feel ownership in these products. And I don't know all other companies feel that way, but I do feel with these companies that they own our products or our projects and they want us to be successful because they get value for being part of us too.
But and again, in the pre-planning part of it, though, we're gathering, we're drawing on their background, their information. We're not hiring them to build the building. We're a long way from that point.
Correct.
I think. So, or build, whatever additions and stuff. So it makes sense to just use them and the knowledge that they've developed here for this part of the process.
Yep. And then if a referendum passes, I can tell you that next meeting, we're going to be looking at architects and construction managers. And then at that time, I'll give you my recommendation based on, and you're going to have an idea and already a feeling of what we need to do and how we can get there. So I think that to that point too, that's where really the huge cost comes is after, if a referendum passes, then we really do. But at this time, I think it's a great symbol. And it's also, I think, the most appropriate thing to do to say, yes, here's our team for helping to plan and look at what we can do. And we're going to pull on what we've already built moving forward so that we can get the best and most efficient and high quality and cost effective product out for our community. All right. So any questions on that whatsoever? And if you have some, let me know. So then the 14th of March, Monday night, 5 o'clock, I'm gonna have a meeting here. I'm gonna put out the community, see who comes and shows up. The last time we had it open, it worked out really well. We had people who came in, they asked questions, but it was a really productive group. So I'm banking on that. And I think that I'll have more information, ideas of the first answers from our team. From me having these different meetings, I've already met with Brand, gonna be meeting with Rettler, already met with Baird. We'll have an idea of some financial things too. Because that was one of the things with Baird is we had talked with Maria and then Mike Clark. If this is going to be like a huge mill rate increase, that's a stop right there. We're done before we even start. So I think all these points meet together. And then also we look at operations, what would that cost for a non-recurring operational referendum? I think those are all conversations we have. We'll get more information, but this is a process that I recommend that we utilize for the next few months.
And then you'll post it as a board for the board in case we have a quorum.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good.
All right, so that's all I have. The only other thing, a couple things. So future agenda items, celebrate ice fishing, winter sports, John can speak to this, and his daughter did an outstanding job along with her two teammates. Almost got 10 grand. They should have got 10 grand. But we have a lot to be proud of. And in the past few weeks, we've seen our students participate at the highest level in many different areas, not only in music, but in business and also in athletics. So we'll do a celebration in March of that. And then also, I worked with Richard from Neola, excuse me, and Sarah. We have 4 or 5 policies that really need input. We have probably about 20 of them that, I'll make recommendations in this sort of, but I think we have some policies that really need input. And what I want to start is a policy committee. I think that, right now, I think that would be a really good thing, meaning that before our March board meeting might have, and I would only ask 2 of the board members to be on there, because I wouldn't want a quorum or anything, but to really hash out what should these policies look like? What changes should we have? Or what should we do? And then have those 2 board members along with, if we have, it's probably Maria, myself, I might pull in if we're looking at a wellness thing, maybe Bridget and some other people, if we're looking at some curriculum, like for instance, there's one about passing grades, like what criteria state statute says that you move from 5th grade to 6th grade and from 8th grade to 9th grade. And there's criteria that we need input from the staff too. So I think I'd really like to handle that in a way where we haven't had a policy committee, but I think that would be a good thing moving forward. And I think it would instruct the board more, and then the board can own those policies a little more, and it's not me just explaining, but those members can also have an active role in that. And it's also a time where I could pull in the experts of my team to help us create those policies in more of a working format. So that's something that I'd really like to do, and maybe have our first one in March before the March board meeting. Any comments or input on that?
No, we used to always have a standing committee, policy committee, and there were, times were different then, and we weren't using Neola. We had our own in-house stuff, so there wasn't much activity with policy, and so it kind of fell by the wayside then. So, but I can see the need now because there's continuous updates and things like that. So,
and it might only meet 2 times a year. Or it might be an ad hoc one where, hey, we have this one policy that we really need to look at, so let's get the group together. So is that something, is there 2 people who'd like to be part of that? Vicky and Terry? All right, is that cool, Vicky and Terry?
Yep.
All right, so Vicky and Terry are gonna be part of the policy committee, and then what I will do is I will set up so that we will have our first policy committee meeting maybe at 5:30 or 6 o'clock on the 28th of March. How's that sound? You'll get much more information about it way before the 28th of March. So the board will also, how you get that one, you'll get, what's that? It's not?
No, I'm asking.
Yeah, it's a Monday, if I got my dates right, I think, yeah. Because we're at the 28th, and then it's actually,
Same as March.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what I will do probably in the next 2 weeks is I'll send the whole board that spreadsheet that has the different policies and the changes and things in there, so you have an idea of the ones that really don't have a whole bunch of things that we need to talk about. And then I will also send you, some information about the ones that we're really gonna be talking about. So if you have any input, I can take those to the meeting with Terry and Vicky and pulling in, be it Adam or Mike or Samantha or Judy or whoever else to help us create and make those policies strong. All right, thank you very much. Other than that, I have, an election's coming up on April 4th. So one more meeting, and I want to once again thank you to all the candidates for being here. It's a great way to spend a Monday night. All right.
Aaron, did you want to mention the dashboard?
We will coming up.
Okay.
You got a few more minutes, Bridget, and you thanks for being patient out there.
No.
All right, cool.
No problem.
All right, thanks. Anything else? I'm done.
All right, next on the agenda, items of new business. Number 1, discuss and consider retirement of educators.
We have 3, over 85, I'm guessing over 9 years if we put it together. Gary Keel, Noelle Pilot, and Julie Kramer. And I've had, my kids have been part of either a coach or in their classrooms, and I really appreciate all that they've done, and I'm really happy for all of them that they have health, they have family, and they're looking to go to the next part of life. So I put forward the recommendation to accept the retirement.
I'll make a motion to accept the retirements of the 3 educators with regrets.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second to accept the retirement of educators, Mr. Keel, Ms. Pilot, and Mrs. Kramer. although I did speak with Gary Keel recently in the last week or so, we will not see the last of him.
Oh, no, he's gonna be subbing all over. I wouldn't bet
He'll be
that
like
he's-
this, he'll be like Dave Cohen. He'll just be here forever.
I got a feeling he's gonna come down here and have some fun with the youths too. Yeah, with the younger ones. Yeah.
So I have a motion and a second to accept the retirements. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Hawk,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes. Yeager,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes. Item number 2, discuss and consider formal relationship with companies for referendum planning, as we talked earlier.
Oh, and you have with regrets on that, right?
Yes, with regrets.
There's no need to, I've already explained those ones, so. And I think this is I think there could be some things when we look at, none of these groups are gonna get over $70,000 in the planning stage, but I think it sends the right message to our community and also these groups that we have a really great team that's gonna help us plan.
So I'd like to consider then board action that we adopt the recommendation of the partners, Ray, Baird, Rettler, C.D. Smith, and school perceptions, as outlined during Mr. Sadow's presentation.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion to accept the proposed planning partners. Do I hear a second?
Second?
I have a motion and second. Any further questions?
That was you, Steve, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
If not, roll call vote, please.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes. Yeager,
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes. Motion carries, thank you. Number 3, discuss and consider return to school plan and edits or changes.
All right, Bridget, are you there?
I'm here.
Can you tell everybody how excited you are to deal with my kid cutting his finger and lice and all these other things now that we have time? Can you tell people, I mean, you look a little bit like your shoulders are up a little higher. How are we looking and how are things going currently?
We're doing much better in regards to COVID. It's really nice to be able to do our normal nursing duties, preventative things, and just kind of looking forward. So as for the district with COVID, right now we have 3 staff out with COVID and 2 students in the district. So much lower numbers, definitely something that we can easily handle. So it's refreshing.
And then Bridget, also, I know the CDC came out with new guidelines. Fond du Lac County Health Department sent out a new memo today. As we look towards what we're doing with the dashboard, you and I were talking, really, what value do you see should we suspend it? What's your recommendation there?
Well, at this point, we have just a few students or staff at any given week out with COVID. It's really not going to affect any decisions regarding face masks or anything like that. We have been trying to update it daily. Things really weren't changing much. So I wasn't needing to update it every day. Probably could have just changed the date on it, but that's about it. So at this point, I just didn't know if the school board wanted us to continue with that dashboard or not. I don't really see a reason to have it updated daily because our numbers have been low the last 3 weeks now. This is our 3rd week.
So, and if we see any rise or if we see anything, then you'll be able to notice that, and if we need to make any changes or anything, we can always have a conversation or make that happen. And that would
Right.
work.
Would there be some advantage to going to a weekly update instead of a daily one?
I guess, we could, just to give people a sense of what's going on, in the district, but right now, our numbers continue to go down. So I guess it's up to the school board what you'd like us to do.
Yeah, and what I would recommend is right now, I mean, so we're not seeing, well, we really don't quarantine much anymore. If there's a close contact, even take a rapid test from home, and if it's negative, get to school. So quarantining really isn't an issue right now. As far as people coming back that have positive, we haven't really had an issue with after the 6th day coming back wearing a mask for another 4 days. And there's so few and far in between of that. And some of the families still keep the kids out and for the whole time. So really, I think that as we go forward, we don't have a whole bunch that we need to change. But the biggest thing is do we want to continue to maintain that dashboard right now when the keeping it, there isn't really a whole lot of change. So my recommendation is that we're doing what we're doing. There's nothing really that I see that's having a negative impact. We're getting kids back. We're figuring things out. Bridget, how many people are getting tested now a day?
We've had anywhere from 1 to 5 people per day.
And remember
So it's
that.
pretty slow now.
And remember that testing's it's not, we don't pay for that. That's something that's provided from government funding, not us. So I guess just really looking for some feedback if you feel about the dashboard. I think right now there really isn't a really need to keep it updated since there isn't much to update. And if something comes to fruition, we start to see a spike, we start to see infection spread, we can always revisit that. But from what we're seeing from all different information right now, we're really starting to, I think, see the next end. As you listen to the principals are starting to do more and more after schools. We're starting to get a lot of things rocking and rolling. So I think we're in really good shape.
Well, since the dashboard was part of the plan, do we need board action to suspend the dashboard?
You can, I mean, that, or you can just say we can just put not updated right now. I mean, whatever this will of the board. I know that is part of our plan and that we would do that. And like Bridget said, masking was tied to that. Right now, we don't see really an increase in that's going to cause school masking. And even if we have more COVID, who knows what that strain is, and what are those symptoms? And I mean, we're getting farther and farther away from where we were in last year and even in January. So I guess as we learned from Ted, it's about continually reevaluating what we're doing. And we've done that with our dashboard. We've done that with COVID all the time. We've evaluated, we've changed, we tried to balance the needs of different things. And now we're at a stage where the data is just showing what the data is showing. And we really feel that we don't need to have as many processes in place in order to move forward. So, I mean, we're still cleaning, we're still doing all those different things. I mean, that's going to be something we always do, and I think that's going to have a huge upside anyways. Masks are still, we still haven't recommended. We have, if people want to wear them, they can. So really there isn't a whole bunch of change right now, except for that we're really starting to see maybe coming out of the other side.
And of course, I do monitor it every day. And so if I see like a huge spike or any concerns, I would of course, let Aaron know. And I can always email the board as well, just as a heads up that we're seeing an increase in cases again. But as of right now, I don't foresee that happening. Not like, let's just hope that won't happen again. But just when you look at the state and also, just the country in general, there just really isn't a huge concern right now. Numbers are low pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and I think both on the side of being cautious and now as we go out the other, I think we take what we've learned and go forward. So I think we're at that point in time where we can start to just move forward.
I think we've learned a lot. I think that right now to keep the dashboard is just a lot of work on Bridget's part, which I think is just busy work and isn't necessary. Of course, you all know where I stand with all of it, but I just think that even if there is an increase of something, it's going to look so much different. You kind of alluded to that than what we had. I mean, going from all the different variants and now Omicron, and I mean, it's just going to be different. It's not going to be the same. And I don't necessarily think that our dashboard is going to really reflect what may come. And like she said, she monitors it every day. I mean, she sees our kids, she sees our staff. So I think that's my opinion.
I agree with you. So my only question is, should we just suspend it or should we have board action to say suspend it?
If you want, like, we can just suspend it. I mean, we've had dialogue. I mean, I'm not going to all of a sudden reinstitute it and say, now we're gonna start going back to, if we start to see increases and we look at having to do masking, we're gonna have to have that conversation. And that's gonna have to be something. I don't foresee that, but I think that just to say 20 cases and we mask now, I think things have changed and evolved.
Yeah, I think it's fine to suspend it, knowing the quality that Bridget provides. If she's monitoring it every day and something would happen, I think from what I see, it's probably gonna be summer before there's any type of different subvariant or variant coming. So as long as we're on top of it, and if something happens, and I agree with Vicki that it's probably gonna be different, but what that is, we don't know, but we'll deal with it at the time then.
And I trust Bridget wholeheartedly. She's been very, she's a healthcare worker and she always will give that advice to be as safe as we can. But I've been very, very thankful that we've had some really good dialogue tonight. And I'm thankful to you and Emily and to Nicole, and Julie in the past. We have to thank Julie too. She was with us in the past navigating this. And I put a lot of trust in Bridget, and I think that that's where it should lie right now. And we take advice from her.
Okay.
I would prefer to have it be board action.
Yes, I would agree there. To suspend.
To suspend.
Yeah, because then that makes it official because it's board action.
Okay.
Put us here, so.
Right.
And then it's there to quickly, if we would ever have to do anything differently, and then we adapt, like I said.
So then what I'll do with this then, Bridget, what I'll do is I'll talk to Karen. We'll just take the link off. We just won't have a dashboard.
Okay.
Why don't you this is below the line maybe, but why don't you have an explanation where it disappears, what happened? So
You bet.
People know.
You know what? Maybe we'll keep that link and I'll just put suspended. We'll just delete it and put suspended at this time. We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
And if any of the schools have it on their
Board reports?
board reports, that's gonna be gone also.
Yeah. We're in a new world and we used it for what we need, but I think
Is that a motion, Mr. Hawk?
Sure.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to suspend the update of the dashboard. Any further questions or discussion?
Well, it'd be more than this dashboard. It'd be,
The whole metrics, the whole.
right, because we don't have a dashboard, so we don't have the metrics in order to do that. And if we needed to, then we'll go in.
Our whole, what is it called?
Return to
Back
school.
to school plan.
Update the return to school plan based on your input.
Okay. You have that?
Yep.
You're scribbling madly?
And I'll still keep the signs for monitoring temperature, and masks are recommended, but you don't have to wear them, and we'll be fine just moving forward how it is, and we'll monitor it. And once again, Bridget, thank you so much for all that you've done. And it's been a haul, and I appreciate more than you'll ever know. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll continue to have isolation of the 6 days following the CDC guidelines. And I have not had any problems with families doing that. But families that, aren't sick at home, they can continue to have a rapid test and return to school with that negative result as long as they have no symptoms. So we'll keep following what we had been doing in the past, and unless things change with the CDC, which you never know, but we'll continue to ebb and flow with what they recommend.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to modify the return to school plan to move the dashboard and the metrics. Any further questions?
Can you send us a copy of the county health memo you said you got today?
Hey, Bridget, do you have that on you? Do you have that? No?
I didn't receive that.
Okay, I'll get it. Yeah.
Just curious.
Yep. You didn't? I'll send it to you then. I'm pretty sure one came today. Normally,
Okay.
yeah.
They might have just sent it to the administrators.
Any other questions?
I want to thank Bridget too personally for keeping us informed throughout this entire piece. Your feedback is really, really appreciated. So not only thank you for everything you do, but the feedback you give us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. If there's no other questions, roll call vote, please.
Hawk,
Yes.
Goldowski, yes. Yeager,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes. Motion carries. Number 4, discuss and consider cooperative with the Fond du Lac School District for girls hockey.
Not just them, but many more. Really, this is, Fond du Lac does a great job since we don't have access. We have one person in it right now. We always have a kid or two that want to be in there. Our boys do it. We need to do that right now. It's a winter sport. You'll notice that before February 1st, we passed ones for this fall. So this then will give us, this is the only one co-op in the winter that we have. We did wrestling last year, so we don't have to do that one this year. It's a 2-year thing.
So who are we co-oping with?
All of them.
So it takes all of those schools together to get a girls hockey team?
No, majority are Fond du Lac, but if Kewaskum has one, if the Springs have one. So there might be years where we don't have one, but we have the ability to offer that. And I think that's the key part, is that when a kid comes to school here, like I can think of, we have one boys hockey, but I know one of my neighbors, huge into hockey. Stay in the district because he wants to play high school hockey. He'll be able to play it for the Cardinals because they allow us to co-op with that. So if we didn't have that, even though nobody takes part in it, and Fond du Lac, the hockey programs, the coaches are awesome, and Dave Mikolajczyk, and he does a great job, and they host that, and it just gives our kids another option.
Sure.
Aaron, can I just clarify?
Yeah,
We do have a girl that's on the hockey team.
yeah, we have one girl and one boy, right?
Okay,
Yep, cool.
got one goalie, male, and a female who plays.
Sam, do you know anything about hockey?
Little bit.
Cool, thanks.
I have just a quick question, I guess, and obviously Fond du Lac can do this, or we wouldn't be able to do it, but I thought the WIA kind of cracked down on large co-op groups because of, coming out of the Franklin volleyball dynasty where they won like 7 state titles in a row. They put a limit on that. I don't know if that was just.
This has to be approved by the Badgerland Conference, which Fond du Lac's part of. And if they saw this as a competitive advantage that they're using the system, they wouldn't okay it. So just because it gets okayed by us, the conference has to okay it too in the WIA. So there are some, like, you could talk to Doug Forsythe. There's a wrestling co-op down in the greater Milwaukee area where there's 2 Division I schools that co-op together for wrestling, So, I mean, you look at Beaver Dam for wrestling, they have Beaver Dam and Wayland Academy. Now, does Wayland Academy give them, they're already a larger school. So, yeah, they look at all these things, and there's a lot of checks and balances to make it work. Right, Carl? Am I saying that correctly? That it also has to be approved by the conference, correct?
Yep, and the WIA has to approve it too. And pretty much every girls hockey team is a co-op like this.
Cool. Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion. There's a second.
I'll second.
There's a motion and second to approve the cooperative program for girls hockey. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Goldowski, yes. Yeager,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Chisholm,
Yes.
Hawk.
Yes.
Right, motion carries unanimously, thank you. Number 5, discuss and consider extra duty letters of assignment.
Just have one Ken Wolf, which Carl's already talked about.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the extra duty letters of assignment for Ken Wolf.
I can make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Goldowski, yes. Yeager,
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes. Number 6, discuss and consider an edit to the 2022-2023 school calendar.
This is a observation that I had this past before the holiday break. The last day before the weekend, normally called Friday, is usually, people are ready for the weekend, but we can last, and we have instruction going all the way to the end. What I've realized when we go around, the last day before the holiday break is very important for parties and for reflections and all that, but you only can do so much. And what I saw this past year is right about 1:30, 12:30, 1:30, the students are done, the staff's done, let's let the parents get a jump on the vacation, and let's rock and roll. So the only request that I have, and this is from an observation, is I think it'd be well received by the community and staff and students that we still have school. They would still get lunch. We would still have that opportunity for closure before we go into the break. It wouldn't have any real negligible impact on our hours of instruction. And then we make the 22nd of December an early release day.
Makes sense.
Did you see similar things, Judy?
Sure.
All right.
I'll make the motion.
I can second it.
All right, I hear a motion and a second that we modify the school calendar to make the 22nd of December, 2022 a early release day. I have a motion and a second. I don't think there's any discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Hack,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Chisholm,
Yes.
Obatsky, yes, Yeager.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. And the students, thank you. And the staff will thank you.
I don't know if the parents will. That's an extra couple hours they're gonna be with the, but no. At all.
Number 7, discuss and consider loans for the purchase of technology with NBAT.
All right.
At the amounts listed.
So what those are, and right here, I provide this to you. It's pretty amazing. Right now, you can see these are, and they talk about our loans or leases. If we were to lease, and this, remember, the board allowed the district to go above $1 million in the amount that we borrow without going to referenda. And I think it's at 2.5 million. We haven't even used close to that. But we can get incredible rates from NEBAT for these loans that allow us to keep up to date. As our audit said, we are, I would say, I would put us and our technology and our cost for technology up against anybody. Anybody. I think we do a great job with the rotation. We have never gone to referendum or anything for technology costs. Plus, we have now with E-rate and with our infrastructure and our wireless access points, we just updated all of our storage. We are now, I don't know if you heard about Nina and how they had that ransomware attack and stuff. We are now going to be going to something called EDR, which is the cutting edge. So if you think about right now, safety that we have endpoint security on each one of our PCs, if you will. Our Macs is called WebRoot. So that's what you guys have on all of your PCs, that if something comes in, this piece of software tries to protect it from viruses and things, right? What happens though is it only gets updated when it finds out that's a virus, and then the company updates that, look out for this. Well, these things are happening real time, all the time. So we are actually looking at investing in this cutting edge technology that will help us to be ahead of the curve and even be safer than we are right now. Talking with Ivan, and this isn't part of this, but just since I have a second here, what this does currently right now, if you figure we have safety on the highway like riding a bike. That's what we got, okay? Going to this new process can be like having an SUV. So if you think about right now, there's a lot of people trying to get and do ransomware. We have protection. We're doing okay. I mean, having a bike on the highway, we're like everybody else. But we have protection, but this will give us more. Sans that, what you see here, this is what we're looking at right here for a loan to get another 240 Chromebooks. And what that does is we have end-of-year Chromebooks that are going out. Even after 4 years of freshman to sophomore or freshman to senior at the high school, we recircle them back into elementary. We have touchscreens at kindergarten that are finally out of life. And with Chromebooks, what happens is to a certain point, they say you can no longer, the operating system of Chrome will no longer update. So we're getting those out. And now the cool thing about the new ones that we're proposing to get, and when we talk about amounts, we did get a quote from CWD along with Tyranny. And the cost of the computers is actually, for Tyranny, it's $282 per computer, and from CDW, it's $321. So Tyranny's done a great job. The reason we do this is to put out our costs. So if you figure we have this computer that we get next year, 2023, it's good to 2029. We spread those costs over 4 years. They're paid for it. We still get 3 more years after. Okay, and so that's what this loan is for. The second loan is for our staff, MacBooks or PCs, different things. We haven't updated our staff's computers, some of them from 2012. And the Apples are great. We were looking at maybe going to Chromebooks for some staff, and we had those are some like $500, $600 Chromebooks, but we're seeing the support and how they work. Macs are tanks. And they've been lasting since like for 10, 11 years. And we're starting to see, and Ivan has seen this, our batteries aren't working. We have to replace solid state memory. So there's two loans that I'm asking for. Number one, the $92,400. That's for our Chromebooks, which will be 250 of the normal Chromebooks, 50 touch screens, and then we have some licensing in there. And then the 50,000, which isn't going to be more than 50, it might be less, would be for MacBook Airs, some PCs. We also know that some of our staff, our administrative assistants in the school, the secretaries, their PCs are really important. They use those all the time. So what it would do is it would give us a refresh. And you can see the reason I have that spread out over 6 years is those last longer. Those last longer. So when we look at leasing, or when we look at pushing out the money for our computers, instead of paying them off right away, I think this makes sense, especially with the 2.95 or the 3.1%, that we get them now. It's the amount it's Ivan and me. We don't really call Heartland anymore. It's mostly Ivan. The honest truth would be that we can maintain almost 3,000 different devices and an infrastructure that supports 1,550 kids and 210 staff. Just so you guys know, thank you. We're a little bit high, but 210 staff. Of those, 120 are certified or teachers. So what I'm recommending is these loans. And if there's anything, the Chromebook one would be what it is. And as you can see here, if these are passed, our payments only actually go up $3,000 next year. And then you can see how then it drops off, but we're gonna I'll come again next year with another, replacing the fleet. And that's what I'm really, really proud of. We don't have any really problems with technology or say like, oh, we have this big thing falling off and we're in a huge need, because we've been smart and we keep continually updating. So that's my request, is to allow and pass this, and then I will give you an update. The Chromebook one will be what it is, and that we don't make a payment for a year, and that billing would come after July 1. The $50,000 for staff devices, that could ebb and flow depending on, or not flow, it would ebb, if you will. It'd be 50,000 or less for what we need.
All right.
And this is purchase. Initially, when we started doing this and it worked well, was the leasing part, and then you moved to, you thought it was a better situation with the purchase. Is that still?
Yeah, so if you go with lease, normally leases are higher in a percentage, your APR. Also with leases, there's a buyout. Normally it's $1, okay? But with the leases, you buy them out, or you're paying, the reason you're paying more for a lease is you're also buying the rebranding. So after 4 years, you're done with the lease. The idea is then like, somebody there? Okay, so what we do with the lease is then we're paying for the services we never use. We're paying for the rebranding, the buying them back and selling them. We never use that. So, we'll take these devices until we use them as like doorstops.
Okay.
So it doesn't pay, it's less cost for us to do the loans. Specifically when we're not looking to get rid of them later on, because we'll run them into the ground.
All right, so what's the board's pleasure on the recommendation?
I'll make a motion to purchase the technology, and that's through National Exchange Bank.
Yeah, so you're approving the loans for purchasing the technology.
Is that different than the line of credit that we have?
Yes, the line of credit is for short-term borrowing.
Oh, yeah.
This is for a specific amount at a percentage rate. And you can see that, we don't know if it's 4 or 5, but it's at 2.9. And when I get it, if I have to come to the board for an official number, that might happen in March or April. But this gives us the ability to say, okay, let's start doing it.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to accept the proposal for the 2 loans for technology. Maria, if you're still online, it seems to me that we added the projector for the auditorium to one of those loans.
That dropped off.
5 years ago. And
That loan has been paid off.
okay, that's what I thought.
Do you want to update it now?
No, it seems it's working fine. So we have a motion and a second to adopt the recommendation. Any further questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Hack,
Yes.
Kowalski, yes. Jaeger.
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, discuss and consider allowing principals to allow exemptions for standardized testing requests from parents.
Turn this over to Adam. The only thing that I'm gonna say is this board motion today, the intent is it doesn't come back next year, and unless the board changes their desire for this, that this would allow the principals to do this moving forward. Adam?
Yeah, and not much to say here. This is one that we typically have every year right around this testing time, but basically, as you can see there, by state law, parents can opt out at certain grade levels, but there are grade levels where parents can opt out and it has to be a board decision. And we typically again allow our principals and our admin team to kind of make that, and we honor those typically, not including last year, which was unique, of course, with COVID. Typically, we've made 10 opt-outs, K-12, in a given year, and that's kind of for just various reasons. Mostly maybe it's not appropriate for that student to take an assessment, so that's kind of mostly what the opt-outs are. But last year, we had some with just that COVID piece of families not comfortable bringing students on site, but if you take that year out, and we're talking about 10 students district-wide.
Is there a percentage of our population that has to test for state or?
That's done. That used to be a requirement. We want everybody to test,
Yeah.
but I don't
I
think
mean,
that's
so like all of a
required.
sudden, if 50% of the parents are like, nah, I had enough of that testing.
Yeah, so the
Then
two
what?
percentage out there is for that state report card we looked at, it's a
Right.
90% cut. So if you're below 90%, then it's just gonna show up on your report card as, hey, you're not, or you're below this 90% mark, so it doesn't impact any of the numbers on that report. And we've always been above that.
Yeah.
On the federal report, it's 95%, and then the kicker there is any students below that percentage count as a 0. So their achievement score is a 0, so we want to be careful with that. And last year, like I mentioned, with COVID, they did away with all those percentages because pretty much across the nation, there were a lot more of those opt-outs in Wisconsin. So I don't anticipate I think it's gonna be back to normal this year with the opt-outs and if parents opt out, again, usually it's a pretty, the rationale for it is one that really makes sense and is best for that child where, even if we go below a percentage, we'd have to talk about that'd be the case, but I still think we would do it just because it's maybe best for that student in that given situation, so.
So just out of curiosity though, so that 90% for state and 95 for Fed is for us to be able to be part of the reporting or right? Is there, other than not knowing where we are then compared to everybody else, is there any other negative things?
There's no consequences.
Yeah, that's the only piece, the accountability piece is on those 2 reports.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then you said that this is something we do every year and.
Yeah, but now this year is just like what my request
Make
is
this
that the
permanent?
board passes this and then this moving forward.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion that we grant the principals the privilege to allow those exemptions.
So moved.
Here a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to allow the principals to allow exemptions for standardized testing on their request from parents. There's no other comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Kowalski, yes. Hack.
Yes.
Jaeger.
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes. That brings us to the conclusion of the published agenda, except for item L, closed session. So under the privilege of state statute 19.85, parenthesis 1, subparenthesis C, which according to Mr. Ted is very limited. However, in the case of today, we will be discussing the superintendent's review. We'll be discussing and considering extra duty compensation plan, and we'll be discussing staff resignation, all under the auspices of 19.85. So, do I hear a motion to move to closed session under those limitations?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second to move to closed session. Roll call vote, please.
Jaeger.
Yes.
Hawk.
Yes.
Stotsky, yes. Geckman.
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes. All right, after a brief
for coming.
intermission, we will be in closed session.
And if you guys have any questions, whatever, feel free to reach out.
Sounds great, thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
So when he was talking about summer, like, you thinking the same thing about their.
Have a good night.
See you guys. Have a good night, everybody. Wherever you are.
So here's the program, I take that on, that I use is I put up those reminders.
All right.
Yeah, well, that's good.
I don't get them. I
Is that
don't
the
like
one for the reading
but I
club?
get it.
Oh, yeah.
If you would tell me.
All right, and see you, Oriole Nation. Have a good one. Ending the stream in 5, 4, 3, 1.